All right, welcome back to Film Buff Bros, and this week we're going to be talking about our favorite 1980s horror movies.
Oh yeah.
All right, so what's your number 3 pick?
Number 3 pick for me is Nightmare on Elm Street, and rewatched like 3 or 4 times the last few days. And because I was thinking, I never watched this movie, and I don't really have a high opinion of this movie if you asked me like a couple weeks ago. But the more I watch it, the more I liked it. And there's so much good stuff. Music. The music is fantastic in this film.
I agree.
It is sprinkled in like almost all over the place, but it's so different. It's not the same sprinkle sound. It's a different one that caters to the scene. Music, fantastic. And the way they show Freddy, it's like he's in shadow for most of that film. He doesn't talk and crack jokes in this one. Like it's like the original one where they just nailed everything. Great acting from Heather and Langdon Camp, I think is the main, and then John Saxton plays the dad / cop. Always solid. So yeah, going with a strong Nightmare on Elm Street. I could go on and on about it, but what was your third?
My third, well, just a quick note, Nightmare on Elm Street, it scared the crap out of me as a kid. Just the idea of like this kind of intangible guy that can, get you while you're dreaming would, make me not want to go to sleep or have nightmares about him. And later in life, I, kind of looked at it in this like, critical lens after watching lots of classics and stuff. But I still think that it's worth a watch, certainly for, teens. It's kind of like a good like teen movie, and yeah, very quintessential 80s horror. My number 3 is Cujo. I've watched it a couple times in my life, and there's definitely a lot of character build up between the wife Dee Wallace and her husband, and it's it is a slow burn, but I think that it becomes a horror movie midway through, and it's super frightening and relatable for people who are afraid of dogs, and the claustrophobic vibe of them being stuck in the car. Pretty low kill count. There's like a double climax at the end when you think it's all over. Dog comes back, and just a lot of suspense. I find it very suspenseful, not that gory. Super well paced, great performances, and I don't think it's corny. Even though like some 80s movies, like yes, you expect it to be campy and corny, and my second pick kind of is, but number 3, yeah, it's just it had none of like that corny aspect feeling to me. And yeah, genuinely scary and relatable.
You see, and that seems like that. There was a lot of Stephen King corny shit that came out in the 80s. This was, I think, 83. And it could have been like, it's just, they're in a car with like a dog, like depending on the type of dog, or like they could have screwed that up. It could have made it corny. And I remember going back and watching about a year ago and going, no, this is like serious. They've done it really serious. They've stuck to it. And I think it's always kind of disturbing when dogs are involved, like the fact that the dog's like suffering and it's just going crazy, like that kind of disturbs me a little bit too, which adds to it being like a really disturbing movie to watch.
Yeah, it's an interesting antagonist. Like the dog is mentally deranged because of the rabies. It was a nice dog at first, and you don't know what the dog's thinking. Like, is he going to have moments of like kindness or stupidity? So yeah, it's a very interesting antagonist.
And super maternal, like relatable, like, this poor little kid and his mom doesn't know how to help him. And so yeah, very
she's stressed out, because she's been caught cheating and her kid's like pissing her off that she wants to save the kid, but the kid is like screaming all the time. And at the worst moments, which is, antagonizes the dog to get more angry. And she's like, quiet, and holding the kid's mouth. Yeah, super good.
Great conflict, great tension. Absolutely.
What was your number 2?
Number 2 is The Changeling with George C. Scott, 1980. Peter Medax, the director. What else did he did? I can't remember what else he did. Nothing that great. But yeah, again, the music. Like when it comes to horror movies, like I go towards music. I noticed that right away. He's a piano composer in the film too. So and like the first thing you see of it being a ghost in this huge mansion house is he walks away from the piano and one of the keys just goes. Yeah. And I just thought that was just fantastic. And someone may say that's cheesy or something, but this was 1980 when it first happened. Starts off with tragedy. His wife and his daughter die. So, and I think we talked about Korean films, how they always, horror films start with some sort of tragedy. So he's broken in the beginning, and it's just going to get worse and worse as he's going crazy through the house stuff. Again, I think we both have this pattern of like there's some relationship stuff with the girl in it that I feel is just doesn't seem necessary for a lot of it. Sound effects of the house, fantastic. The little lullaby music, music box, and it's just him trying to solve this mystery in this huge, beautiful house. The one thing I thought was kind of weird is like his daughter's favorite thing was a ball. It's like, was she a dog? Like, it's like this red ball, like not a doll. And I get it because they wanted to show the ball going down the stairs for the camera and all that. But it just was like, dude, the girl's not a dog. She's chewing on the ball or what? Like,
right. Yeah.
Anyway, what do you think about Changeling?
It's a bit of a slow burn. Great performances, great cinematography. I enjoyed it the first time I saw it. The second time I watched it, I guess I just wasn't in the mood. Maybe I was tired, and I just thought it was too much of a slow burn. But yeah, I need to give it another shot to have a stronger opinion on it.
It's a vibe. It's a vibe. Sometimes I don't want to put it on for sure. It is very slow and sort of quiet. And Yep.
So my number 2 is Monster Squad. I remember when we were kids, it came on Super Channel, and we had Super Channel free for a while. That opening scene with Van Helsing in Germany and the vampire chicks and everything, like super scary to me. And I just love like the kids defeating the vampires aspect of it. Fighting all the monsters, and you have Wolfman, so you have all like the classic Universal monsters in it. And to me, it's just a fun movie with a bit of scariness peppered throughout it. I thought the guy who plays Wolfman, who is the uncle from Napoleon Dynamite, he's really good in it. The scene where he changes into the werewolf in the phone booth actually is quite scary, and you feel bad for him. He's trying to warn the cop that Dracula's coming for his son. Lots of great transitions, funny transitions, like where he says 1,000-year-old mummies don't just get up and walk out by themselves, and then the next shot is the mummy's feet, and then it pans over to like some of the characters driving by in a vehicle. So it had these great like transitions within scenes and from one scene to another. Good performances, funny, kind of scary, adventurous, action-packed. Love it.
I think it's one of the best coming-of-age movies, period. Like, and so many good things about it. It's like better than Goonies. It's better than Stand By Me, in my opinion. But the Dracula, like the makeup of all of the monsters in it, like the Frankenstein, just probably some of the best monster makeup I've ever seen in the films. So that and the humor was just like fantastic throughout the whole film. You got just great humor, but also balancing perfectly with like scary scenes. So,
and another thing I liked is like how what the kids are going through is very relatable, and they like address all of the things, or a lot of the things that adolescents are afraid of. There's the scary neighbor, the scary German guy. There's the bully, played by Kevin's brother from the Wonder Years. And then there's like the monsters that come to life. So they're addressing a lot of these things in the movie, super succinct, well paced. And it has, that 80s montage, rock until you drop, dance until your feet fall off. And they're like making silver bullets and stakes to fight the vampires. And then like, all these kids are like gaining heroic character traits by having to fight these monsters. So you're right, it is like a coming of age story, but done in such a not over the top spoofy kind of humor way. Like it really walks that line of horror and comedy really well.
Yeah, it was just, when you said Wonder Years, it's almost like, with Stranger Days, like it's like they combined Wonder Years with like monsters to make Stranger Days, so yeah, fantastic. Well, number 1, we agree, The Shining. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Was my favorite movie of all time for the longest time. I'm still probably going to go back to it, but it inspired me to make films, and Jack Nicholson became my favorite actor because of it. Kubrick became my favorite director because of it. So, yeah, I got a lot to say about this movie. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, well, I think like cinematography stands out the most. Like spooky is a word that I think really encompasses that movie. The timing of the dialogue via the performances is second to none. One of the aspects, one moment that I'll never forget is when Wendy is explaining to the therapist that comes to see Danny after he's had the seizure while brushing his teeth. She's like, oh, he dislocated his shoulder. It's just something, that happens or whatever. And then they pan to the woman, or they cut to the woman, and the woman's just, just stone cold looking at her. Like, so yeah, the silences do so much in that movie. Mr. Halloran, awesome performance. Mr. Ullman at the beginning, the guy who's giving him the rundown of the Overlook Hotel. Wendy, Shelley Duvall's performance, the kids' performance, yeah, everything is phenomenal. Grady, Delbert Grady, the bartender, just awesome performances. Such good execution and timing. Spielberg saw it and thought that Jack Nicholson was over the top, so it was borderline comedic, but it kind of works for like the spooky, creepy, his like out of place, like enthusiasm and irritation. Yeah, it just works so well.
Yeah. There's so many people that have so many essays all over the place about this film, and then all the conspiracy theories that go with the film too. But like one point I always thought was great, someone made it, was that he starts the film with already there's something not right about him. Just the way he behaves, and the way he talks to Ullman, it's a little off, a little phony. And then when he's in the car with his kids, he treats them like a certain way too. So you already know going into this is spelling disaster. He's locked up in a place, the foreshadowing, they do that in Blair Witch, the lore. Here's all the stuff that could possibly happen to you. And then they're throwing this guy in there who's just 5 months on the wagon. So just like everything points towards disaster. And a few directors have mentioned this, I think Scorsese said it, but just the slow burn aspect combined with that, it's just, he's just constantly pulling the tension and pulling the tension and pulling as long as humanly possible. And it doesn't seem like a slow burn in the sense like I want to fast forward any scenes in it, because just the momentum of him going those hallways on that cart and then cutting to Nicholson and just the maze, like there's just so many parts of this movie that make you want to keep watching and keep watching it. Loved the ending too. Different than the book, way better than the book. So I don't know, everyone said everything about this movie. Number one movie, probably horror movie for sure, if not probably my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, it's definitely up there for me too. Yeah, I think that's a good point you make. You know what's going to happen. Like, that it's based, like going into it, it's based, even before, when it came out in theaters, people know, I'm not sure what the trailer was exactly, but like they know that this is going to be a horror movie. It's Stephen King. And then you hear about the axe murdering that happened in the opening, in the first act. You hear about what happened to one of the previous winter caretakers. So they have these moments of like seeing ghosts, Danny seeing ghosts, the blood coming out of the elevator, Jack getting angry with his wife, the maze, all these little moments of conflict and spookiness that help build that tension. So despite you knowing what's going to eventually happen, it keeps your interest throughout it leading up to like the climax.
But isn't that the Hitchcock thing of saying, if you have a bomb go off, two people at a table, a bomb goes off, that's like the new horror movies, like, shock, boom. But then you pan the camera under the table to reveal a timer with a bomb on it ticking. So the bomb's going to go off, and now you've created tension. So yeah,
the opposite of a slasher movie, or like the torture, gory movies, where it's just like shock, 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 shock. This actually slowly, artfully builds tension and suspense until the final payoff, which I vastly prefer. And I think Kubrick did it perfect along with all of the cast.
Yep.
All right, so I guess that wraps it up for our top 80s horror films. So stay tuned next week for a new video, and maybe watch some of our old videos in the meantime.
Thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe.